Most people assume that parents are always the cause for the well-being of the child. Also, that no parent can ever harm a child. These are all assumptions. Not every parent is 100% perfect. There are kinds of parents who harm the child, and these acts create problems for the child throughout his or her adult life. It would be a blessing for the child if he or she is able to overcome the effect of toxic parenting at a later stage in life. Following are my observations regarding toxic parents. 1. The child isn't treated like an individual and is not allowed to have or express his or her opinion. Toxic parents are domineering by nature. 2. The child is asked to be eternally grateful to the parent for providing even basic necessities. It's like the parent is doing a favor to the child by raising it, and it isn't their duty to provide for the needs of the child. 3. Constant put down. Each and every act of the child is criticized, and the child is kept dependent on the parent for validation. 4. Narcissism. This is a very common trait among many toxic parents. The child is expected to care only for the needs of the parent and forego himself or herself. 5. No privacy. Extremely toxic parents even try to get information about their child through his or her friend. The friends are invited over, and the child is sent to his or her room and the friends are questioned. 6. Reverse parenting. The parent tries to substitute the child as a means of venting out their frustrations. 7. Keeping them on leash. Even when adult children move out, these toxic parents exert control in their life through using guilt or obligation, etc. Toxic parents wouldn't allow the child to have an independent life. 8. Never good enough. Whatever achievements the child accomplishes is treated like it's nothing. Extremely toxic parents would even say the child was just lucky to win or accomplish something and nothing to do with his or her abilities. 9. The child is openly put down in front of outsiders like teachers, friends, neighbors, etc. This is a means of showing the child who's the boss. 10. Gaslighting. Toxic parents employ this technique to confuse and manipulate the child. 11. Physical punishments. This is a very common feature of a toxic parent. This is done to instill fear in the child during the early years so that the child can be controlled throughout his or her life. 12. Comparisons with other kids. These happen in normal parenting as well. But constantly comparing and putting down the child and upholding other kids is a manipulative tactic used by the toxic parent. 13. Keeping siblings apart for manipulation. Toxic parents like to be in charge of all the kids and discourage unity among siblings. This is for exerting control. 14. Controlling adult children. This is the extension of toxic parenting well into the life of the child. The toxic parents even criticize the parenting technique of their adult child. The easiest way to take charge of your life is to identify whether your parent is toxic or not. Keeping away from a toxic parent is essential for mental well-being. Physically abusive parents. Relationships with toxic parents can be very hard to walk away from. After all, they were the foundation of your childhood. You grew up with them, I get it. Some people are cut off from family for that reason, or due to unresolved anger and resentment from childhood. However, you may need distance from your parents to create the boundaries that you're unable to make verbally. Believe it or not, this is the best option. Detaching is an emotional concept and has nothing to do with physical proximity. It means not reacting, not taking things personally, and not feeling responsible for someone else's feelings, wants, and needs. Our parents know how to push our buttons. That's because they're the ones that put them there. It's harder to not react to our parents than to our friends and partners, with whom we're on more equal footing. Even if you move as far away as you can, emotionally you may still react and have trouble detaching. Truth be told, our childhood is the most essential years of our life. This answer is going to vary depending on who you ask, but personally, it all comes down to how toxic were they. If one of them were physically abusive, the best thing you can do is cut away completely. This is something deep-rooted in their psyche, and physical abuse is not okay. By sticking around, this is enabling them and giving them the green light that it's okay to push you around and do harm to you. And that's not okay. You have your life, your boundaries, and mostly, your mental health is important. Sticking around is going to really screw you up. You may even experience unusual guilt for cutting them out completely. But don't. You're only trying to find your place in this world, without the need of them leeching off of your energy or physically abusing you. You weren't born into this world to be kicked down the minute you were born. Therapy and having the good support of your own close friends, I feel, are necessary. When you can form your own life surrounded by the right people, you will find it's easier to break away from the toxicity of your parents or other toxic family members. There will come a time to face them, but taking the time to heal and figure things out is also important. Negative parents. If your parents are just negative and not physically abusive, this is a different scenario. In this case, I'd suggest that the ideal way to become independent from your family is to work on yourself with therapy. Then visit your parents and practice what you've learned. Try behaving in a way that's different from the role you played growing up. Ask yourself, what is there to be afraid of? Naturally, you may feel like a child with your parents, but you aren't one. You're now a grown adult. You can leave, unlike when you were a child. The ball is now in your court. Consider what boundaries you require in order to feel comfortable. Know your bottom line and cut out when things begin going south. Your life is your life, and they are not anyone to tell you what to do. Your mental health and happiness depend on it. Sometimes, if they get the hint, they'll begin to reflect and see that they're pushing you away. Maybe all it takes is a good conversation about how you honestly feel. It may take many tries, but if they care, they will listen. Here are a few things to keep in mind when dealing with abusive and toxic parents. They aren't you and you aren't them. This means you aren't going to end up in that same mindset as them. You're better than that. People in general who are toxic and negative had someone hurt them as well. They're venting their inner pain and hurt onto you. Remember, their B's negativity has nothing to do with you. Parental abuse may trigger you. Be sure to set boundaries and practice non-attachment. You're not the negative things they said about you. They aren't God. Cutoffs won't heal you. Some parents are just brutal. Whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, narcissistic abuse, or all of the above. This is why therapy is important. Just remember, you deserve a better life, and cutting away to go to therapy. Work on yourself and build your own foundation is important. The greatest thing as an adult is that you call the shots. Forgive your parents. This may sound contradicting, but forgiving them allows you to move on for yourself. Hating your parents will reflect and embed itself into your personality. It also interferes with loving yourself. Forgiveness frees us to live in the present. When you hold on to hurt, pain, resentment, and anger, it harms us far more than it harms the offender. It's like letting hate live rent-free in your head for years, and that takes its toll. You owe it to yourself to be free from the bees life throws at you. Sit down with whichever parent hurt you and talk to them. This is the hardest one, but talking about what you feel is essential. Parents won't always be around, but perhaps all that pain they vented onto you is from the lack of self-love or parental love they experienced themselves. At the end of the day, family isn't whose blood you carry. It's who you love, who loves you, and how much you love yourself. Grow your self-love so high. Nobody's negativity matters. Loving yourself is the most essential in living life happily. If someone comes along and wants to be in a relationship with you, that love should feel like an add-on to the love you already feel for yourself. Not a necessity. Love is to whole people, not halves. You have to understand that nothing was ever wrong with you either. We're all in this journey of life together, and life is a flawed journey of obstacles waiting for you to overcome them. One day you'll be a parent of your own children, and you'll be able to give your children the love that they deserve.